Hope you like your F1 movie called F1. I like the F1 movie called F1. I'm currently back in my hometown with not much to do and a whole lot of movies coming out in the next couple weeks, so I thought it might be a good idea to tell you all my thoughts on them because you guys totally asked for that, right? Right? Anywho, if you haven't guessed, today we are talking about F1, the newest Formula One racing movie from Apple Studios and Joseph Kosinski, the man who Frankensteined America's love for Top Gun, not to be confused with the guy from The Office with a very similar name. Film stars Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes, a veteran race car driver who is offered the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to return to the sport of Formula One racing. It is a high-octane, fast-paced sports film and will likely be your dad's favorite movie for the next couple years. I must admit, I'm not a guy who follows Formula One, but I also very clearly was the target audience for this somehow. I think it is a great cast, some really fun racing scenes, and the whole time I was watching the screen just like, I love movies. Brad Pitt's so cool. Those cars go so fast. That's mostly all I can say without giving spoilers, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Don't spoil the movie for yourself. Yeah, it's fun. So crazy that they put in a Francesco cameo. No, they didn't. But seriously, don't spoil this movie for yourself, okay? All right. Now that we got that out the way, as previously said, I don't know anything about Formula One racing. I have been to Monaco, though, so eat your heart out, I guess. Honestly, I can only speak about this movie as an enjoyer of movies, and I gotta admit, I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. I thought the cinematography looked fantastic, thought the character dynamics were really interesting, and all of the racing tactics totally worked for me. What about that old man Brad, though? Brad Pitt was genuinely so cool. I can't imagine this movie without him. He had this sort of swagger to him that felt very similar to Maverick, which, like, duh. Also, Brad had a quiet and reserved thing about him. He was often a man of few words, and he's a lot more grounded than Maverick ever was. I also think this was an instance where having a really big star helped. More often than not, having someone so famous can take you out of it, but this casting just really worked.
What was your thoughts on Damien Idris?
I also really enjoyed his performance. I thought he was such a good counter to Sonny that there were times where he was young and naive and they butt heads, but also there were times where they were on the same team. And for me, every moment where he morphed into a new stage of himself felt believable. And I really enjoyed the Rocky homages for their training techniques. It was subtle, but it was definitely like everyone in the movie had that Leonardo DiCaprio moment where they're like, this is Rocky. And it was cool. It worked. The supporting cast was also super stacked. Javier Bardem, who I had no idea was in this movie, is an old friend of Sonny who is now the new team owner. He walks this tightrope perfectly of stressed desperation and foreign millionaire swagger. Everyone's got swagger. Everyone's really cool in this movie. I like that. Except for that one guy who was like the weird dude. But anyway, what about the racing? I really love the race scenes. I was worried that this was going to be a pretty formulaic movie with some general race action, but majority of the race scenes really kept me on my toes and worked very well into the narrative. All of Sonny's strategy or Plan C seemed realistic enough to me that I bought it, and I found them to all be very clever. Now, that crash, I know that wouldn't actually happen like that, and I know every Formula One fan probably was like, oh, that would never happen, and it took me out of the movie. But I swear everything leading up to that had me on the edge of my seat and my heart dropped when it happened. And I was in a very full theater of elderly people who all gasped, and then one man kept saying, "Oh no, why'd you do that, man? Why'd you do that?" All I'm saying is, even if it wasn't realistic, I'm sure that's exactly what the filmmakers were hoping to get. And sometimes a little plausible impossible is a bit better. You know, we make movies. We don't make real life. Well, all right, then what didn't you like? Okay, so I thought the first half of the final race, the stakes for some reason weren't quite as clear to me. Like there was so much going on with Sonny coming back and the new racing team deal that although the goal's always been to win a race, it just didn't feel the same amount of pressure in the first half. It should have, but it just didn't to me, and I don't quite know. Honestly, that just felt the most like watching a real race, because there was like hundreds of laps to go and it all didn't quite matter yet. The second half was fantastic. Also, this is silly, but the car that is in the lead is Lewis Hamilton. and he's a producer of the movie. So every time they said his name in the end, it just took me out just a tiny bit. Like how in the movie Yesterday, I don't know if anybody see Yesterday? But in Yesterday, they kept saying it that if the Beatles didn't exist, Ed Sheeran would be the greatest singer-songwriter on earth. And I was just like, okay, I guess. Although I heard good things about Lewis Hamilton, and I heard he actually is really good. So it's like not surprising, but at the same time, it's like you paid a lot of money to be leading this race. But anyway, honestly, the product placement that everyone's been talking about, I didn't mind quite as much. There are ads all over racing, and I didn't notice that Sonny's wearing AirPod Maxes, which is pretty silly now that I sit back and think on it. But I more noticed the stickers than the headphones themselves. However, the Lewis Hamilton moment did get me. He's a cool dude, though. It was just really silly.
And what was your favorite part?
I have two. The first was a very small thing, and it was in at least two different moments where both the drivers are driving. Their hand would like cross frame, and then it would transition very cleanly into the other car. And I thought that was really cool. And I thought it just highlighted how clean and subtle these like edits were. It was really, really cool to me. And I was like, ooh, that's so nice. My favorite story moment, though, was definitely Sonny running. I thought that was such a simple and effective way to show his character and the effect that he's had on the team and everyone. And I really liked it a lot. Now, let's address the Kachow-shaped elephant in the room. Halfway through this movie, I went, oh, snap, this is Cars 3. Now, stick with me. It's like 10 times better than Cars 3 is. But I do believe it's like what Cars 3 should have been. But on the surface, it's very similar in vibe. You know, you got the veteran car comes back trying to help the new guy. It's button heads with the team owner and all this stuff. He's got one last shot to prove himself. I don't know. It was just, when you watch it, you go, this is a little bit like Cars 3. So it's not exactly the same, but it's again, it's like what Cars 3 should have been. So if you watch it, you think that Sonny Hayes is Lightning McQueen, it makes it even more fun, I think. I just wanted to put that one out there because I know the audience overlap is very slim, but I couldn't help but think of that. But now Durham, what was the point? To get a bunch of people to start watching F1. No. I will definitely play him in the game, though. Honestly, this movie really directly asked the question of why. Why do we do the things that we love? And why do we do the things that are hard? For Sonny, it's to feel like he's flying. For Joshua, it's for fame and success. For Kate, it's to prove to other people who told her that she couldn't. I think it asks this question that all sport movies inherently ask of what does it mean to succeed? And why do you do what you do? This aspect can be applied to everyone's life. Why do you want that promotion? Why do you want to ask that person out? And as a filmmaker, I really related to the question of why do you want to create? As for your personal whys, that's for all of you to find out. In the meantime, I highly recommend checking out F1 in theaters now. It gets very enthusiastic thumbs up from me. And I believe I cried twice, but I cry at most movies, so you might not. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this style of video, be sure to subscribe and stick around because the summer of Super 4th Rebirth is just around the corner. That was an awful name. But until next time, I'll see y'all at the movies. Bye!